Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Well, sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and View.
And here are today's headlines.
U.S. President Donald Trump has agreed to suspend a planned bombing of Iran for 2 weeks, accepting a 14-day truce proposal amid ongoing conflict.
Unemployment eases to 5.1% in February, but still with 2.6 million Filipinos jobless.
The government rolls out cash aid for tricycle drivers outside Metro Manila amid rising fuel costs.
AWR Numero survey shows growing economic anxiety and a more divided political landscape, with many Filipinos dissatisfied with government priorities as early preferences for the 2028 elections begin to emerge.
First on the news, the Philippine Statistics Authority says unemployment eased to 5.1% in February, lower than January's 5.8%, but still above the 3.8% recorded a year ago. For details, we go live to mobile journalist Ray Vicente at the PSA in Quezon City. Ray, go ahead.
Angela, Diego, base nga sa naganap na labor survey preliminary results para nga sa nitong Pebrero 2026, ayon sa press conference ng Philippine Statistics Authority, bumaba nga sa 5.1% ang unemployment rate ng bansa. Nakatumbas ito sa 2.66 million na bilang ng mga unemployed. At yun nga nasabi ko, mas mababa pa ito kumpara sa 5.8% noong Enero. Pero mas mataas naman ito kung pagbabasihan natin, Angela, Diego, yung year-on-year raw na nasa 3.8% naman noong Pebrero 2025 naman. At para naman sa employment rate ng bansa ay tinatayang nasa 94.9% o 43.43 million nitong Pebrero. Mas mataas ulit ito kumpara nga sa 94.2% sa January 2026. Pero again, mas mababa naman ito kumpara sa 96.2% noong isang taon sa parehas na buwan. Ang mga youth naman na nasa edad na 15 to 24 years old ay nasa 85% yung tinatayang bilang nitong Pebrero 2026, na mas mababa sa tinatayang bilang na nasa 89.6% noong isang taon naman. At maliban dyan, bumaba rin, Angela, Diego, yung bilang ng mga underemployed naman na nasa 11.8% nitong Pebrero kumpara nga sa 13.2% noong Enero. Pero tumaas naman ito ulit kumpara nga sa 10.1% noong nakaraang taon. At ang sabi naman ni Undersecretary Claire Mapa ng PSA, ang rason daw kasi nito ay kumpara daw talaga nung isang taon, kung year-on-year ang pagbabasihan, mas marami raw kasi talaga ang nag-participate ngayong taon, kaya makikita yung pagbaba ng bilang ng mga underemployed pati unemployed. Pero maliban dyan, syempre, yung mga sektor na pinakamataas ang employment na nanatiling nasa una, ang services sector kung saan nasa 63.5%, yung pangalawa naman ang nasa agricultural sector na nasa 18.8%, at huli naman ang industry sector na nasa 17.7%, Diego, Angela.
Ray, are they expecting yung mga underemployed number tumaas in the coming months, given na, of course, yung underemployment is based sa whether they're satisfied sa income nila at kulang ang income. Ngayon, tumataas na yung presyo ng lahat ng bilihin.
Yes, Diego, Angela. Actually, ngayong buwan, dahil nga last week ng February nga nangyari yung tension sa pagitan ng Middle East, hindi pa raw talaga mararamdaman yung both unemployed pati pa nga underemployed. Pero inaasahan daw sa mga susunod na buwan, mas tataas pa yan, lalo na may mga ilan tayo sa ating mga kapatid na tumataas din yung mga bilihin, pati ganun pa rin naman yung kinikita nila. Pero ang sabi nga ni Undersecretary Dennis Claire Mapa, sa ngayon, complete na actually yung March 2026 na labor force survey, at wala naman siya sinabi kung ano yung mismo resulta, pero titignan daw nila yan kung mas bababa nga. Pero sa ngayon, inaasahan nga nila yun.
Oh, and then given that this is until February lang yung itong report na to, at kapag gumawa na silang report na kasama na itong nangyayari sa Middle East, yung mga conflict din na oil crisis natin, we are expecting na tataas pa yung bilang ng mga walang trabaho or underemployed.
Yes, Angela, yun nga ini-expect nila. Pero actually ngayon kasi, meron nang nabawas na mga nasa agricultural sector na 23,000, no? Hindi naman sinabi ni Yusek Mapa na talagang related yun sa nangyayaring tension Middle East, Pero sabi niya, inaasahan daw yung mga nasa agricultural, pati wholesale and retail trade, particularly mga nag-repair ng mga mechanics, inaasahan daw nga yung pagbaba.
Ray, paano naman yung mga sa transport sector? Kasi madaming recently mga jeepney, mga bus drivers, mga almost 50% ang nagka-cut ng trip.
Well, Diego, actually sa ngayon, dumagdag pa nga actually yung bilang ng mga employed na nasa transportasyon, no? Nasa 486,000 yung ngayon, pero hindi natin nakuha yung panayam talaga ni Yuse kung mas bababa or tataas ba siya sa mga susunod na taon, lalo't nga ongoing pa rin yung crisis sa Middle East.
May nakita rin pagtaas doon sa mga, aside of course doon sa services na nabanggit mo kanina and sa agricultural sector, but doon din sa wholesale and retail sector, ano? Ano yung ano natin doon? Ano yung explanation nila doon? Ano yung bakit nagkaroon ng increase doon sa area na yon?
Yes, Angela. Ito is specifically sa wholesale and retail trade sa repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles. Well, in general talaga yung sinabi nila yun, no? Kapag January raw kasi talaga, pati February, ito yung mismo after holiday, mga nagtatanggapan yung mga companies ng mga bagong trabaho, mga bagong aplikante, pero hindi talaga nila specifically sinabi yung specific na reason para sa job nito kung bakit tumaas siya.
At meron din ako nakitang improvement sa employment rate pagdating doon sa youth sector, no, from 15 to 24 years old, as compared to before, no, yung mga previous reports na nagkakaroon sila ng problema doon dahil nga doon sa sinasabi nila yung senior high school program na there are companies pa rin na hindi nagtatanggap ng mga graduate ng senior high school. Ray?
Yes, Angela, tumaas nga ito sa 85% nitong Pebrero, no? Kumpara nga sa 82.7% noong January. Pero mas mataas daw talaga ito dahil yun nga nasabi rin kanina, may mga nagtanong na isa nga sa'yo dahilan katulad ng sinabi mo, yung mga tumatanggap ng mga senior high school. Actually, ilan nga sa mga trabaho na yan, yung mga syempre sa mga fast food, no? Pero syempre yung mga kumpanya o mga big companies, hindi naman natin alam kung tumatanggap pa rin nga sila ng mga senior high school student sa ganong job nga.
All right, thank you for that, mobile journalist Ray Vicente.
The LTFRB will revive its service contracting program to assist commuters and transport operators amid rising fuel prices. The details from mobile journalist Yeda Pascual.
Mahirap po, mahirap. Mahirap talaga. Mahirap eh. Alos bawi mo, 300 na lang araw-araw. Mahirap.
Jeepney driver Ruel Hornala can't help but shed tears after fuel prices rose up to almost 20 pesos once more. This is the 5th time that fuel got more expensive between last month and now. As he gets his tank refilled at this gasoline station in Pedro Hill, Manila, he is already thinking about how to make ends meet. Passengers tipping definitely help. Still, it's full tank, empty pocket once more for PUV drivers like Ruel.
Alam mo, minsan nga, parang yung mga driver na naawaan ng pasahero, minsan may bigay 100. 50 pesos hindi na kinukuha yung sukli. Ma'am, maraming salamat po. God bless po.
On Tuesday morning, Transport Group Piston staged a noise barrage in different parts of Metro Manila. They have the same complaints that they believe are falling on deaf ears and concerns that remain unaddressed. How will they keep on plying routes and earn a living with outrageously oil prices?
Malalaman natin ngayon, pagdating ng hapon, kung mayroon pa ba talagang kagaya ng barya na nga lang inuwi, ngayon 170 na, baka pati yung barya na wala na po, baka doon na po napunta sa diesel. Yung iba kasi hindi na sila bumabiyahe dahil hindi na rin nakaya. Yung iba naman po, mga operator na lang po yung bumabiyahe. Kaya po, nire-request po natin sa ating Pangulo, binigyan na po siya ng emergency power, bakit hindi pa po niya ipatupad na pasamantalang tanggalin yung bantay sa langis?
No fare hike for now. Another demand of PUV operators and drivers that could give them much-needed relief. The reprieve LTFRB has in mind, though is a service contracting program it is reviving on April 15. This initiative was first introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic, where the government will hire both traditional and modern jeepneys and pay them per kilometer. The LTFRB will also temporarily employ buses and UV Express units. 15 to 20,000 units stand to benefit from the program, covering up to 800 routes nationwide. The budget? 800 million pesos coming from the 2026 national coffers. But according to LTFRB Chair Vigor Mendoza, This budget will only last a month at most.
We do not anticipate this 800 million to last for very long, no? Mas lalo na kung talaga gusto natin mapalawak yung coverage nito. So we are anticipating, i-request na naman kami ng panibagong budget, malapit na maubos itong 800 million na to.
So can PUVs collect fares to improve take-home pay?
They are allowed to collect also yung transport fares, no?
Okay.
On top of the subsidy para hindi naman sila malugi pag nagbiyahe sila.
How about commuters? The LTFRB says it is studying the possibility of fare discounts.
Tricycle drivers outside Metro Manila are now receiving cash aid to help cover rising fuel costs and daily expenses. For the details, let's bring in mobile journalist Jazz Paredes. Jazz, go ahead.
Diego, Angela, nandito tayo ngayon sa Inanes Shipping Center sa Antipolo, Rizal para dito sa cash aid assistance para sa tricycle drivers ng mga Antipoleño or mga taga-Antipolo. And as of this moment, kung makikita nyo, Diego and Angela, halos wala nang nakaupo sa mga upuan. And nagsimula yung kanilang payout kaninang alas 8 ng umaga and hanggang mamayang hapon yan. And kung nagtataka kayo kung bakit wala na masyadong mga tao, ayan ay dahil mabilis yung naging proseso ng pagkuha ng ating mga mga tricycle drivers. At nung nakausap natin yung representative ng CSWD and PDRB, ang explanation nila kung bakit daw mabilis yung proseso, no, kung makita natin, it's very different doon sa mga nakasanayan natin mga payout na mahaba yung pila and puno talaga yung mga venues. Ang ganun na daw kasing estratehiya, ayan, nagkaroon na sila ng pre-verification yung outside this venue 2 days ago kung saan nagkaroon sila ng pagpapalista, kinontak nila yung mga presidente ng mga TODA, sila yung nagpasa ng pangalan and yung registration ng ating mga tricycle drivers. And after that, after the verification, ay tinetext nila isa-isa yung numbers ng mga tricycle drivers para malaman nila kung ano yung kanilang schedule, kung nakaschedule ba sila ngayong araw, ano yung kanilang cashier number, para pagdating dito ay bawas na yung proseso ng verification at pipila na lamang sila dito sa mga numerong ito. Kaya naman pagdating nila dito, hindi na sila nag-aantay ng matagal at agad nilang nakukuha yung kanilang cash aid assistance. Ngayon, tanongin naman natin, Angela and Diego, no, kung kamusta yung experience ng ating ilan sa tricycle drivers. Tingnan tayo ito kung meron tayong maabutan na nag-aantay. Hello po, sir. Magandang umaga po, sir. Sir, kamusta po? Nakakuha na po ba kayo ng ating assistance? Saan tayo po tayo? Ito si sir, isa siyang tricycle driver. Yan, sir. Kamusta, sir? Nakakuha na po ba kayo?
Opo, ma'am. Nakakuha na po. Thank you po.
Ano pong pangalan nila, sir?
Vicente Adel Alojado po.
Kamusta naman po yung kanilang experience sa pagkuha ng assistance?
Yes, ma'am po. Hindi hassle yung pag-appeal po. At mabilis naman po.
Hindi po kayo nagkantay ng matagal, sir. Saan po kayo nanggaling ngayon, sir? Dito lang din po sa Antipolo.
Sa Masinag po sa Kupak.
Paano yan, sir? Since nakuha nyo na ngayong araw, bumamasada pa po ba kayo?
Hindi na po. Coding po kasi yung motor kaya pahinga po muna.
Pero sa inyo, sir, okay itong ganito na maganda yung ating proseso.
Opo naman. Mas maganda po to kaysa nung mga pagpipila pa hassle pa kasi.
Ano yung plano natin sa nakuha ng assistance, sir?
Siguro pambibili muna ng gamot ng nanay ko at pambibili na rin ng bigas sa ulam.
Hindi siya sa gasolina din napupunta, sir.
May gasolina pa naman po at full tank pa naman.
So, maraming salamat po. Ingat po kayo. Ayan, Diego and Angela, narinig na natin kay sir na mabilis talaga yung naging proseso dito. And actually, nung tinanong natin siya, pagdating niya, umupo lang siya saglit para sa process nung pagtingin ng kanyang mga documents, tapos nakuha niya na agad yung kanyang 5,000 na assistance. And bukod dyan, Diego and Angela, actually, we're anticipating today talaga is 2,000 yung kukuha out of 19,000 na beneficiaries for today. Pero dahil na mabilis lamang yung proseso, hindi natin maramdaman yung 2,000 na dami ng tao. And kung makikita nyo, wala na rin dumarating dito sa aking trend. Isa-isa na lamang talaga yung mga tricycle drivers na pupunta ngayong araw. Even yung mga panghapon, pinapunta na rin ngayon para lang at least habang nag-aantay, hindi na sila pupunta ng hapon, makakuha na sila ng kanilang assistance ngayong umaga.
So just klaruhin natin yung proseso, no? Lahat ng pupunta dyan, parang kumbaga pre-approved or nasala na. So pagdating dyan, claiming na lang ba or may isa pang step?
Yes, Diego, no, tama ka dyan, no? Not necessarily claiming agad dahil pagpunta nila dito sa cashier, merong DSWD representative na i-verify pa rin naman yung kanilang mga documents, kagaya ng kanilang driver's license and yung photocopy ng kanilang, what do you call this? Meron yung photocopy ng kanilang driver's license na may 3 specimen signatures. Pero hindi na siya ganun katagal dahil nga, usually kasi sa verification check sa listahan kung nandun ba siya ngayong at tatanggap ba siya ng naka-pre-verified na, natatanggal na, i-double check na lang dito kung sila nga yung nakalista doon. Pero hindi na daw siya ganun katagal no, Diego. And actually, kanina, mas tumagal pa kasi meron tayong tricycle drivers na nakalimutan magdala ng kanilang photocopy. So, nag-set up yung ating DSWD and ng LGU ng kanilang sariling parang photocopy dito sa side na to. Medyo mababa yung pila na dyan kanina dahil meron tayong mga ilang tricycle na kopya. So at least para makakuha rin sila ngayong araw, nag-set up na lang sila ng photocopy dito sa kabilang side katabi ng kanilang help desk.
Alright, thank you so much. That was our mobile journalist, Jazz Paredes.
Inflation is picking up again, and this time analysts warn the worst may not be over. Price pressures continue to build, driven by surging fuel costs amid the Middle East conflict, with the impact expected to spread further into food and daily expenses. Here's the report.
Inflation in the Philippines surged to 4.1% in March, its highest level in almost 2 years. The last time inflation reached the 4% mark was in July 2024, and this latest figure even exceeded the central bank's forecast. More striking, the month-on-month increase hit 1.7 percentage points, the sharpest jump since 2022. The Philippine Statistics Authority says this was driven mainly by surging transport costs as fuel prices spiked amid the Middle East conflict. Food prices, including rice, also added to the pressure. Analyst Bob Herrera Lim warns on Storycon that the full impact of higher fuel, fertilizer, and transport costs has yet to filter through the economy. He says more price increases, particularly in food, could be felt in the coming months.
We are not yet done with the inflation story. If you take a look at vegetables, we are in the peak of harvest season for vegetables, which is driving prices down. If you go to the market, they haven't shot up. They have gone up, but they have not shot up. So we are also still waiting for the effect of higher fertilizer prices, higher transport prices, and finally the sort of the harvest, bumper harvest effect dropping down.
And the effect is already being felt in the peso's buying power. The PSA says 1 peso in 2018 is now worth just 75 centavos, meaning 1,000 pesos before now only has the value of 750 pesos. Political economist Calixto Chiquiamco told The Big Story that with fertilizer and food costs linked to oil, inflation could remain elevated throughout the year.
Well, it might even go higher. As you know, fertilizer is derived from fuel. So if oil prices increase, then naturally food prices will increase. So we haven't seen that yet. We have to brace ourselves. But I would like to emphasize, that what we're facing is not just an economic crisis, but we're also facing a political crisis. Why is that? One is that our political leadership is divided.
As the global oil crisis continues, economists warn the country may still be in the early stages of a broader price surge, with households expected to feel even more pressure in the months ahead.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Amid economic pressures and political tensions, a new nationwide survey offers a clearer picture of how Filipinos view the country's direction and where early political preferences are heading. Mobile Journal Daniel Dayo reports.
After the politically challenging first quarter, the latest WR Numero survey shows where Filipinos stand on the current issues today.
In a nationwide survey conducted last March, over 1,400 Filipinos shared their public sentiment on the country's most pressing political issues. Majority believe the country is headed in the wrong direction, with 58% saying government priorities do not align with their top concerns of job creation, higher wages, and the rising cost of living.
The national mood has deteriorated sharply, but particularly what we believe is economic anxiety instead of just any type of anxiety. Economic anxiety is dominant, as revealed in the policy priorities that they've identified. There's really a demand for government to address economic issues, especially in this quarter.
The survey also shows a more divided political landscape, with more Filipinos now identifying with political factions, including those aligned with Duterte, Marcos, and the opposition.
Some of the voters are now taking a position regarding which faction they belong to, and because the issues have been quite polarizing the past few months, then Filipinos are now deciding what they identify with.
The growing political divide is also shaping early preferences for the 2028 elections, although a crucial 20% of voters remain undecided.
This is something that we always talk about at the firm. The task of a successful presidential candidate is, of course, to not lose their hard supporters, not lose their soft supporters, get supporters from other candidates, and attract and woo the people who have not yet decided. And this is comprised of a big chunk of our voters still at 20%. So this is absolutely crucial in the next few months, and in the next 12 months.
Shown in the survey's presidential race, Vice President Sara Duterte leads, followed by Senator Raffy Tulfo and former Vice President Leni Robredo, who are both statistically competitive. Senator Bongo and Bam Aquino then complete the top 5, while other names like Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte and DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon have also entered the list. In the vice presidential race, Senator Bongo leads, followed by Grace Poe, Robin Padilla, Rodante Marcoleta, and Risa Hontiveros. The survey also captures early mentions of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., highlighting potential shifts in the political landscape. Meanwhile, in the Senate race, Senator Raffy Tulfo tops the list, followed by Robin Padilla, Grace Poe, Alan Cayetano, and the highly anticipated Pasig Mayor Vico Soto. Members of the Duterte family, including Sebastian Baste Duterte and Paulo Pulong Duterte, also appear in the rankings, underscoring the faction's continued political base. Other personalities such as Dingdong Dantes are also gaining early mentions.
If they want to position themselves as an attractive candidate, they have to make sure that they align with the interests of the Filipino people.
As economic concerns persist and political lines become more defined, these survey results provide a snapshot of public discourse and a glimpse of how Filipinos may vote ahead of 2028. Kapatid Mobile Journal, Daniel Dayaw, we are One News.
For more on the latest survey and what it says about the country's political mood, we're joined by Antonio Contreras, professor at UP Los Baños and a political analyst. Prof, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, and apologies for not dressing up more appropriately because I'm on vacation right now.
Wow. Well, thank you for having us
Well, thank you
while
for,
you're on your vacation.
Well, vacation and work at the same time. I'm doing some research as well.
All right. Oh,
Wow. So,
multitasking si Prof. Pero Prof, narinig mo ba yung survey? So ano ang tingin mo dito? What does this snapshot tell you?
well, it's too early, actually. And this is a very abnormal time because of the war in the Middle East and the things that are happening right now. It's very unsettled. So I don't think this is a very stable number. I don't want to, well, they just are snapshots, as you correctly pointed out, of the opinions and the perceptions of people right now. And so to use this as a basis for a very definitive analysis of what will happen in 2028 might not be good at this time, but it's also good to be guided by the trends, for example,
Yes.
of what counts a lot. Indeed, economics is very important issue to people, more so na mayroon tayong krisis sa ngayon.
That's right.
But in terms of the political alignments, I find, for example, the margins, particularly in the vice presidential candidates and the senators, are very within the margins of error. So it's very difficult to say this one guy is ahead of this guy when the difference is within the margins of error. So it's something that probably would need a lot of caution. I would say.
Pero Prof, I'd like to ask, no, kasi taking into consideration yung nangyari sa US election sa naging referendum on economics and hardship, no? So that's why President Trump was elected. Kasi a lot of people were complaining at that time about yung buhay nila, no? And right now, we're going through a hardship. Now, do you think what's happening now will more or less be the main topic na pag-iisipan ng Pinoy sa pagpili ng kanilang gusto iboto?
Well, actually, economics, importante man lagi talaga yan. Kahit saan, yung malapit sa bituka. The thing is, President Marcos is not running for re-election in 2028. So, to punish him for something might not be that parang hindi naman siya kasama na sa kandidato. Hindi ba lang kung kandidato siyang vice president. But what is of course important is kung sinong endorse niya. Pero napakatagal pa kasi ng pwede mangyari ngayon. Hindi natin alam kung ano mangyari sa ekonomiya natin. Paano niya i-handle itong economy natin? Mag-rebound ba? But what is heartening here is to look at one of the graphs that was presented by FWR Numero. Nakita natin doon, di ba, merong graph comparison between the Duterte base and Lenny and yung parang something about the Marcos base. They split it into three: Duterte base, the Marcos base, and the opposition or the progressive base. Kita natin yung dalawa, yung si BBM, yung Marcos base, tsaka yung opposition, traditional opposition base, paakyat. Yun naman kay Sara Duterte, parang nagpa-plateau na. So that is interesting because it's a trend. I'd rather focus on trends rather than on numbers.
Yes.
So the trend is something that should worry Sara Duterte. Kasi parang nakarating na siya doon sa kanyang plateau, sa kanyang upper limit. And with the very large size of the undecided, that's something that needs to be... Kasi nakita naman natin, and I think something that was not said in the report, but I read, yung dating bumaba yung significantly yung number ng undecided eh. At yung a certain more of the undecided that used to be undecided in the past surveys broke for Marcos and for the progressive, the liberals.
But,
So, ibig sabihin yan, yung dating yung trend ng mga undecided, mas pumupunta sila sa non-Duterte option. So that is something that is worrisome for Duterte.
Really? Because yun nga sinasabi nila, even if you say that it is on plateau status na yung kanyang numero, is it also safe to say na ang tawag dito, 30 plus pa rin naman yun eh. Parang kumbaga malaki pa rin naman yung numero yun as compared to the other contenders.
Well, I think what should be read as a tea leaf by those who'd like to fight in the 2020 election is a very possibility that there has to be some strategy because divided they will fall. I think kung makikita mo naman, minority lang, hindi naman majority ng 50% yung nakukuha ni Sara. Wala sa kanilang isa man na majority. At although si Sara Duterte ay may plurality, minority pa rin yun. So siguro, yun ang signal na gumawa na ng paraan ng mga tao na magkaroon lang ng isang kandidato. There's something that needs to be talked about. Although, ang isa ding resulta ng survey na nabasa ko, parang 48% ng mga tao ang ayaw yata na mag-fuse ang Marcos at ang Lenny Risa camp. 48%. And that is something that is interesting. Although, ako naman kasi, ang tingin ko dito, pag ang pinoject mo kasi, gusto nyo bang magsama itong dalawa, Unipink. Eh di syempre, may mga emotional attachment yan. Averse ang mga Marcos loyalists sa Pink Lawan, sa kasi Yellow. Averse din naman ng Pink at Yellow sa Marcos loyalists. So therefore, pag tinanong mo yan upfront, ayaw nila magsama. Pero tingnan mo yung voting pattern. Ako, mas gusto ko pang tingnan yung mapa na ginawa, nangyari ng 2025 elections. Mas gusto ko yun kasi yung resulta na yun ng election, hindi na yung survey.
Yeah.
At doon sa election na yun, kung titingnan mo yung mapa na pinakita ng Frederick Stifco, yung FES, may mapa sila, pinakita. Nagbumoto ang mga tao as if may parang agreement between the Pinks and the Marcos loyalists kasi pareho yung area ng strength nila. So, ibig sabihin yan, maaaring pag tinanong mo sila, boboto ba kayo na magkasama yung dalawa? Siguro hindi, kasi emotional. Pero during the times of the elections, how they voted is more important to me. And I think that's because the strength of the Marcos and the Leni and the Riza camps are in the same geographical areas, NCR, Calabarzon, Central Luzon, Northern Luzon. And Sara is really in just Mindanao and some of the Visayas, which Leni and also Marcos has some enroll. So using that as a basis, unless there is something that is new, I'd rather depend on the geographical location of the votes rather than on surveys that are emotional and branding. Pag tinanong mo ng isang Marcos loyalist, gusto bang kasama si Leni? Of course, hindi yan sa papayag. Yung isa naman, ganun din. Pero ang tanong, paano ba sila bumoto? Paano sila bumoto noong 2025?
Alright, Prof, last question, very quickly na lang po. Although you said this is too early to tell, pero don't you think magamit din tong survey na to ng mga politiko ngayon on how they will vote on the impeachment sa Congress?
Precisely. Actually, I think ako ang analysis ko dyan kasi meron din isang number na I think it's not the WR numero. I think it's publiko siya na nagsabi na 33% ng issues na they go way down kay Sara ay impeachment. Although medyo popular siya pero ang pinakamaraming negative vote niya pagdating sa impeachment. So doon din siya matakot. Kasi kapag naglabasan na yung ebidensya, pag lumabas na ganito pala nangyari, pag fair, nakita-perceive ng tao na fair yung proseso. Kasi sa ngayon, tinatanong ng WR, gusto nyo bang impeachment? Of course, ayaw ng mga tao. Pero pag naglabasan na yung mga, mga evidence, hindi iba naman kasi yung ayaw mo ng impeachment kasi sa naniniwala ka hindi siya guilty, magkaibang tanong yun eh. Kasi may mga tao na naniniwala na guilty siya, pero huwag na lang magpa-impeach, hintayin na lang eleksyon. Pero pag lumalabas yung mga ebidensya ngayon, baka magbago yung pananaw ng mga tao ito. So doon matakot si Sara. Kasi ang dalawang bagay kay Sara Duterte, nagpa-plateau na siya. Pangalawa, ang issue na maaring magbabagsak sa kanya ay number one sa nakalista sa mga taong issues laban sa kanya, which is impeachment.
Right.
So yun yung kaya siguro siya tumakbo ngayon sa Supreme Court. Ayaw niya nang matuloy ito. Kasi yan ang kanyang Waterloo.
Alright, well, we will continue this discussion but for the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Antonio Contreras, Professor at UP Los Baños and Political Analyst. Enjoy your vacation and your research.
Yes.
Manila 2nd District Representative Rolando Valeriano has proposed the agapay sa hanapbuhay at operasyon ng negosyo or ahon as a more responsive alternative to Bayanihan 3. In an interview with 1PHS sa Totoo Lang, Valeriano said the government must act immediately to help citizens cope with the worsening effects of the Middle East conflict and the ongoing oil crisis. Among the interventions he is advocating is a monthly aid of 3,000 pesos for low-income earners over the next 18 months.
For 18 months, tatanggap po ng 3,000 yung lower income. Yun po yung mga sumisweldo ng less than 25,000 a month. So sila po magbe-benefit po dyan. Bukod pa po dyan na magkakaroon ng toll fee reduction kasama po sa batas natin. So naniniwala ko kapag bumaba yung toll fee natin, bababa lahat ng cost. Hindi nga itong nakakamatay itong crisis natin, not like yung pandemic before. Pero baka unti-unti rin po tayo rito pinapatay dahil pamahal ang bilihin.
In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has agreed to pause bombing of Iran for 2 weeks after previously issuing stark warnings of severe consequences if Tehran failed to meet his demands. Here is a report.
U.S. President Donald Trump has halted a major military offensive against Iran following deliberations with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. The pause coincides with the expiration of his ultimatum to Tehran regarding the Strait of Hormuz. Trump said that almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran. But a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. Before the suspension, Trump warned Iran of devastating consequences if Tehran failed to comply with his demands. Amir Said Iravani, Iran's representative to the UN, said Tehran would take immediate and proportionate action if Trump follows through on his threats.
There must be no doubt Iran will take all necessary measures to defend its people, safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity, and protect its vital national interests with full resolve. The United States and the Israeli regime will bear responsibility for all subsequent consequences, regional and international.
The chief of the United Nations was also troubled by the statements made by the U.S. President, according to UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric.
There is no military objective that justifies the wholesale destruction of a society's infrastructure or the deliberate infliction of suffering on civilian populations.
Even Pope Leo XIV said that Trump's threat was truly unacceptable and said any attacks on civilian infrastructure violate international law. Pope Leo recalled his Easter appeal for peace and to reject war.
So come back to the table, let's talk, let's look for solutions in a peaceful way, and let's remember especially the innocent, children, the elderly, the sick, so many people who have already become or will become victims of this continued warfare. To remind all that attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction that the human being is capable of.
We're now joined by Dr. Clarita Carlos, a former National Security Advisor and a political analyst. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Doc.
Hi, Prof.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, Doc. Thank you for joining us. And of course, I would like to start off by asking you about this recent pause by President Trump, in 2-week pause. Do you think this is the start of the escalation or just a temporary thing?
Well, Trump has been lying all along, so I don't see any reason why we should believe him now.
That's true.
So, Prof, well, given all of this and how Trump has been behaving, do you see this going into a wider regional conflict?
It has widened already. It has spilled over beyond the original actors. So what we need to do really is to get Trump and Netanyahu, two evil men, two deranged men, to be stopped, but the U.S. Congress seems to be in a catatonic state and is unable to move at all.
But as you said kanina, he's always lying. What do you think is his game plan here? Why would he supposedly agreed to a 2-month or ceasefire, 2-week ceasefire?
If you're losing, you're going to look for all options. But, you don't need to be a psychologist to know that when you lose face, napahiya in our language, you're more likely to undertake the most heinous acts. Remember, they were negotiating in Geneva. The next day, they bombed Iran. Okay, we're looking at patterns of behavior here. We don't need an IQ of 140 to discern that pattern. So whatever he announces, or whatever his cabinet members who are all morons announce, also, then you take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
And Prof, they've been talking about in the U.S. recently about maybe the cabinet denouncing President Trump as unfit. Do you think this is possible?
It's not likely. I mean, all of them are rowing in the same direction. They're all deranged. For God's sake, are you not content analyzing what they're saying? Hegseth, Rubio, etc.
Yes.
These people don't know how to read. They don't even know how to locate Iran in the map, believe me.
But I was wondering, Professor, that how significant is Pakistan's mediation here? Does this signal a shifting diplomatic center away from traditional Western brokers?
Well, we know that Pakistan is not anything to pay attention to. Behind Pakistan is, of course, China, for God's sake. China yung nasa likod niya, no? Because if you look at all the countries who owe China the most billions, it is Pakistan.
Mhm.
And you look at your geography and you know why. So this is ignored by Iran and Trump. I'm sure they didn't pay attention to this. If you will notice, this has now become a U.S.-Iran war. Nasaan si Netanyahu, no?
Totoo.
Nagkatras na yung ano niya. Umatras na yung yuno.
Well, given, Prof, na yung eroding support ng ni President Trump mismo, not US per se, sa international community, should the Philippines then rethink its alliances with the US?
Oh my, unfortunately, I cannot share with you guys my secret memos to Bongbong when I was NSA. So, but after I'm gone, pagkatapos ko mamatay at they will be in my archives, makikita nyo na lahat yan ay noon ko pa sinasabi yan, wala pang Iran war. Na wag tayong pahawak sa leeg sa Amerika. Diba?
Pero kunyari, ito pong ginawa nila recently, no, bago itong 2-week pause na ito ng ceasefire na ito between Iran and the US and Israel as well, ay kinausap po ng DFA ang Iran ambassador at yun nga po, dumiretsa po sila doon para nga daw magkaroon tayo ng safe passage doon sa Strait of Hormuz. Is that a wise move?
Unang-una, wala naman tayong barko. Ang ating stake dyan, yung mga Pilipino na mga seamen na nandiyan sa mga barko na yan.
Yeah.
Wala naman tayong ba't ba tayo naglulukuhan dyan? At saka tayo, binibili natin ang ating mga fuel needs dito sa mga bansa sa paligid natin, sa Thailand, Singapore, etc. Kaya isa lang naman refinery natin. Kaya yung mga nagbibili doon. Kaya yung naka-headline pa na Iran allows us to pass to the Strait of Hormuz. Oh my God. I'm going to cry from parang
Since day one.
comedy.
Oo.
Yeah.
Alright. Pero po from a national security lens, sa tingin niyo po ba ito pong crisis na ito would reinforce talaga most especially yung importance po ng sea lane security, especially po yung sa atin sa Pilipinas?
Well, ang dapat natin leksyon dito, kung hindi tayo tanga at bobo, ay yung military alliances, pasay na yan.
Right.
Kanya nga, isa sa mga memos ko, siguro pwede kong i-reveal yan kasi hindi naman siya mataas ang security concern natin, ay mag-join ng BRICS, mag-join ng SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, kasi yun ang magpapalawak ng produkto natin sa mangga, pineapple, etc.
Yes.
Yun naman kailangan natin. We need to increase our exports. We need to increase our foreign reserves. Tapos tignan mo, nakadugtong yung ating buhay dyan sa US dollar. Ilan na ngayon? Kanina umaga parang 61 pesos to $1. Por Diyos por santo.
Na-expose talaga yung vulnerability natin because talagang we are tied up with importation
Tell me about it. Tapos we are headed by so-called economists na mahirap magsalita. Baka maban pa tayo dito sa sa airwaves, no? But seriously, sino nga ba yung congressman nagsabi siya? Nagawa siya ng arithmetic niya Kasi yung mga bansa sa paligid natin, hindi naman ganun kataas yung yung increase ng kanilang diesel at ang mga ibang gasolina, no? Sabi niya sa kanyang simple arithmetic, actually 300 billion lang pwedeng ibaba ng dun sa dating level natin before the war Kasi kahapon parang nasa Tagaytay kami, 156 per liter yung diesel.
Right, oo. Totoo.
Pero Doc, consistently there's been a downplaying, from of course yung mga from Malacanang about the word crisis. But at what point does this become really a national security issue? And should we take this to the next level?
Tama na yung mga rightist, leftist, centrist. Kaka-lecture ko lang nung Monday sa klase ko na these labels do not mean anything, Yung mga gumagamit nun, bobo, no? This is now a national security issue. Dapat collective ang action natin. Makinig tayo dun sa congressman na yun whose name escapes me. Kaninang umaga naglakad siya. Sabi niya, ito naggagawa akong kalkulasyon. Na yung mahahanap natin yung 300 billion na yan. Alam mo, lakapin mo lahat ng mga confidential and intelligence funds. Yan, Nika dyan, magkano intelligence funds niya? 1 billion as in B-boy, no? So, I mean, medyo gamitin lang natin yung Nasa gitna ng tenga natin, yung utak natin. I know you can sense my outrage, di ba?
Yes, definitely.
I'm not just a political scientist. I'm also a citizen like you.
Yeah.
No?
And we are all
Parang
affected by
tumubo yung
this.
tenga. Yes, tumubo ang tenga ko. Nag-full tank lang kami ng pickup ko. Ay, parang 11,000. Tapos Mariosep.
Right.
Minimum wage na yun. Di ba?
Yes,
Wow,
that's right.
11,000.
Kaya
Tell me
nga,
about it.
Kaya nga, Doc, no, speaking to several people sa transport sector, ang dating, similar to your issue, ang dating 2,700 na full tank, nagiging 5,400, negative na po ang take-home pay. And yet, we still don't see a resolution in sight. How much longer do you think the average Filipino can hold on bago nagkaroon ng, bago mag-meet siya into something bigger?
Tell me about it. Alam mo, pag nag-spill over yan sa food, kahapon nabasa ko din na yung, alam niyo yung trading post sa Baguio, yung ang mura-mura ng mga gulay.
Right, yes.
Kasi may yung ganyan, minsan yung isang, bundle na 10 kilos ng, ano ba yan, ang sayote, 50 pesos lang. Alam mo, ang kanilang reklamo, kahapon na interview sila, yung papunta sa Manila, usually they'll spend parang 10,000 ata. Naging 20,000. I mean, mahirap pang intindihin yan. I-subsidize niyo yung transport, di ba? Parang hindi pagdating dito, siyempre ipapatong sa atin yung 10,000. Yung luya nga, isang araw lang 70. Kahapon 300 pesos, no?
That's right.
Oh my God. So, bakit ang hirap pang memorizing niya? Hindi nga ako economist, I'm a political scientist.
Right.
But I'm also a mother, a grandmother, and ang pangalan nito, namamalengke ako. Kitang-kita ko talaga yan Diba? So, alam mong ginagawa nila, pinapabulok na lang nila, no?
Right.
Pinapabulok na lang nila yung mga produkto nila, for God's sake. Buti nga lang, di tulad sa India, hindi sila nagsusuwis.
Alam mo, Doc, tama ka doon. Medyo ang dami na rin nadidismaya. But, and to think na hindi pa po factored in dito yung magiging crisis po sa mga OFWs. Kasi if ever this continues, magkakaroon ng large-scale repatriation and at the same time, remittances can zero out or go down and we will start to really suffer. Do you think a collapse or a recession is in the horizon?
Excellent observation. Actually, noong bago pa pumutok itong war na to, sinasabi ko na sa relevant agencies, i-upskill no? I-re-skill ninyo ang ating mga laborers, ang ating mga workers, hindi lang dito, kundi nasa ibang bansa, parang 10 million sila. Dahil talaga, ang AI will really replace most of them. Ayan na yung reality. Let's set aside war. Ngayon, tama ka, no? Pagka na-display sila, I'm sure pagka naging economically underdeveloped yung mga tinamaan ng war dyan sa the whole region, then what will happen is that, of course, they are going to ask the domestic workers, particularly, na umuwi na kayo, wala naman kaming pambayad ng inyong mga sweldo. O ilan yan? Hindi yan thousands, millions yan, no?
Yeah.
Paghandaan natin yon, no? Bakit hindi tayo nakakalinig sa migrant workers, BMW? Bakit wala? I mean, ano ibig sabihin ng silence ninyo? Nagbabalangkas ba kayo ng plano? Ang tagal na niyan na lang yung bigla na lang magbalikan yung mga iyan. You can imagine the social dislocation that will cause. Diba? High crimes, social anomie. I don't need to be a political scientist to detail to you what the implications are.
Finally,
so dire.
Finally, Prof, baka nanonood o nakikinig ang ilan sa mga tao sa gobyerno. Baka may suggestion kayo or mensahe sa kanila.
Uplift Committee.
Uplift Committee.
Oh my Lord, wag na lang. Alam kong nandun sa bad books ako ng mga iyan so hindi niya makikinig sa akin. Paala na lang sila sa pagbabalangkos nila. Saka pa.
On that note, maraming salamat po as always sa inyong oras, Dr. Clarita Carlos, former National Security Advisor and Political Analyst.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, is holding a media briefing on Oplan Bantay Padala, the impact of the fuel crisis and online safety. For the details, we have mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw. Daniel, ano bang napag-uusapan dyan?
Good morning, Diego and Angela. So nandito tayo ngayon sa DICT headquarters kung saan pinag-usapan ng Oplan Bantay Padala ang context of fuel prices impacts and online safety kanina lang. So kakatapos lang ng event bago ako lumabas dito. And so far, ang pinaka-na-highlight ay ang PEMEDES or Private Express and Messengerial Delivery Service of DICT. So ang compose na to ay Angkas Padala, LBC, JRS, but take note lang na this is for delivery purposes. Hindi kasama dito ang LTFRB o yung may mga passengers, no? So aside from that, Diego and Angela, especially now with the rising fuel hike and of course yung encouraged 4-day work week, talaga naman daw encourage na ng gobyerno itong 4-day work week and then expected na mas magiging in demand ang delivery, ang courier delivery and connectivity as per DICT Secretary Henry Aguda. So Diego and Angela, both consumers and riders are considered here in this context. No? So first, ano nga ba ang Oplan Bantay Padala? So actually, this is an online platform for concern. So it was launched last January and according kanina sa mga data na shinare ay from 1,200 complaints ay bumaba na ito ng 390. So that dipped to 71%. No? So far, this was the information that they have ensuring yung safety ng consumers and riders by partnering with PIDEA. So dito tinuturuan ang some riders to get to know yung mga parcels na may mga contraband. And aside from that, when we're talking about riders, no, shinare rin kanina ni Director Carlo from DSWD na yung mga riders, ang PEMEDES riders ang may pinakamaraming numbers na natanggap ng cash assistance or ayuda, which is 5,000 as of now that we're talking, no. So last March 30, 80K daw ang nakatanggap, but just yesterday 95K riders na itong na-share sa atin ni Director Carlo. And as of now, na-tackle din ang Roblox, no? Kasi ito sa pinag-uusapan ng mga kabataan ngayon kasi yun yung pinaka-concerns nila, baka maban ng Roblox. And just to clarify, itong Roblox pala ay not necessarily na hindi na ibaban. So next week, for the talking pa yan, so yun yung tututukan natin, Diego and Angela.
Alright, so ano yung pinaka-plan ng agency dun sa mga nagpapakalat ng fake news amid oil crisis? Yesterday, ang PCO Secretary si Dave Gomez nag-file ng complaint. Doon nga parang nakita nila kung sino yung mga nagpapakalat na yun. Pero dyan sa agency, what are their plans?
Actually, Diego and Angela, natakal na yan kanina and natanong na natin yan. But as of now, nanghihingi talaga si Secretary Henry Aguda sa mga trolls na daw muna ang pagpapakalat ng fake news because as of now, marami daw inaasikaso ang DICT, especially when it comes to PEMEDES riders and of course, yung ensuring yung consumers and rider safety. So as of now, yun daw talaga muna ang focus nila and tututukan natin yan in the next coming meetings with DICT.
Alright, thank you so much. That was our mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw reporting live from Quezon City.
In sports, Filipino athletes continue to make their mark on both the international and local stage. Filipino tennis star Alex Ayala is through to the next round in Austria. Ayala defeated hometown vet Julia Grabher in straight sets to advance to the round of 16 in the Linz Open. The 18-year-old pulled away in the second set with 3 straight games and held her ground to close out the match. She will next face world number 23, Elena Ostapenko. In volleyball, Creamline is back in the semifinals. The Cool Smashers defeated Akari in 4 sets to clinch the final semi spot in the PVL All-Filipino Conference. Alyssa Valdez led the way with 20 points as Creamline bounced back strong after dropping the 3rd set. The team now advances to the semifinal round, Robin alongside PLDT, Signal, and Farm Fresh.
The Artemis II crew, fresh from their lunar flyby, made history on Tuesday with the first ever radio call between a moon-bound spacecraft and the International Space Station. The link-up included a reunion between Christina Koch on Artemis II and Jessica Meir on the ISS, who previously conducted the world's first all-female spacewalk. The mission, the first lunar flight since Apollo 17 in 1972, will conclude with a Friday splashdown off San Diego. It sets the stage for Artemis 3, a lunar lander demo next year, and Artemis 4 in 2028, targeting the moon's south pole. Hello,
Yeah.
moon.
Ah.
Nakita mo, hello, moon. Ganda nung
Actually,
capture ng
Yung nila, yung kay, yung kay Elon Musk, tsaka yung isa, kay Branson ba yan? In a couple of 3 or 4 years, they're planning a parang maglo-lottery kung sino, or tas mong
Parang
kabayan.
tourist attraction, di ba? They'll
magiging
bring
tourist
somebody there.
Oo, sana naman wag ganon,
Mahal.
di ba? I mean,
Let's fix everything here first.
ayusin muna natin dito bago tayo magkalat sa iba.
Yeah.
Di ba? Sooner or later, baka ubusin natin na resources doon. Look what's happening now, yung
Yeah.
crisis dito,
Well,
daming issue.
Sabi nga nila, at the end of the day, cooler heads prevailed, at least for now, doon sa ginawa ni President Donald Trump. But we'll see what's going to happen
Yeah.
after 2 weeks.
Hoping for the best. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Labunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.